and welcome to ICF Tennessee Live. We are so grateful that you could join us today as we continue our celebration of Women's History Month. ICF is taking this time to reflect on the amazing achievements made by women in the coaching profession. We celebrate their efforts from the past because it really gives way to the opportunities that we have today as coaches. And it is my honor to introduce Pat White. Pat is a recognized leadership expert. She develops leaders, teams, coaches. She's the lead coach for Spectrum Group's coaching division. She's a certified MBTI professional, DISC, neurolinguistics programming, the Hogan Leadership Series, Lominger Voices, and she's also a certified heart math coach. She serves on the faculty of 2 coach training organizations, and she has authored many articles for books, business books, periodicals. Her education includes a master's degree in organizational development. She holds a master's certified coach credentialed from the International Coaching Federation, and she is a certified mentor coach. She's served on several volunteer boards, supervises new coaches, works with MBA students. She's known nationally as the coach's coach, but we all know her as the founder and ex officio board member of ICF Tennessee. So welcome, Pat, and thank you so much for spending time with us today.
It sounds like I spent an awful lot of time and money on a lot of training, doesn't it?
Well, you probably did. You probably did.
That's what coaches do. We are lifelong learners.
Lifelong learners, for sure. Hey, Pat, I want to take us back to 1996 and think about what was happening in Nashville at that time. You know, in 1996, Minnie Pearl's famous hat was on display at the Grand Ole Opry. Dina Carter's Strawberry Wine was the top country hit. Tennessee had just elected one of its very own to serve as vice president in the White House. And the quarterback Peyton Manning was in his junior year at UT. Go Vols, right?
Right.
But tell us what you were doing in 1996 and tell us how you first learned about professional coaching.
Okay. In 1996, I had finally, after opening up my own business in 87, after coming here for a job with HCA, I had finally started to make some money, some income. My husband and I had said we could afford $50,000 for my business to get off the ground. And would you believe I was at 49,000 before I started really making any money. But I love the OD consulting I was doing. That also had some training with it. And we had a great training organization here in Nashville. We had Cable, which was a woman's group. It's where I met a lot of people who have actually come along. And but there was, having worked in Manhattan, that I had the privilege of a New York City OD group to attend and training. And I was lonely. I didn't have enough stimulation. But what I did have was an opportunity again to go to a mastermind in Bermuda for those of us that used assessments and were distributors and had done well. And
Oh, I think Pat's frozen up here just a little bit. Hopefully she will get back in action.
okay, there we are.
Yeah, okay. All right. So We left off with you were headed to Bermuda.
You got it, because this guy liked to play golf there. So that's how Bermuda happened. And we loved it. But you were expected to come with one accomplishment from the last year that you had set and met. And you were also supposed to bring another question for the group to help you with. In effect, group coaching.
Yeah.
But I came and I said, I am finally making an income with my consulting, but I'm hardly ever home. And my husband has a job. He travels too. And I'm ready to take a job running a photocopier. I'm so burned out. And 3 people around the table said, you should become a coach. And my response to them was, that California fad? You know? And so I went on to meet with each of them individually. I was very reluctant to take the coach training. I felt like I had a master's. Why wasn't that enough? You know, all that stuff. But I did sign up at Coach U at that time. And the first class I took was in listening. God bless whoever the instructor was, because I had a chip on my shoulder. And I learned so much. So anyhow, came home and started my program in Coach U. Fortunately, I actually had too much business and had to postpone a class, which meant I had to call the person, Ed McCool, who was the registrar at the time. And as we talked, I just asked him if he was a mentor coach too. And he said yes. And I asked him if I could call him when I was ready for one. And he said he'd be delighted. And he and I worked together for 5 years straight. Wow. And then he worked with my husband for a couple of years. And then when we were ready to rewire our life, looking at that thing that otherwise is called retirement, we worked with him at the same time. So yeah, that's how it all started.
Yeah. So how then did you know that coaching was right for you? I know you'd been in OD work and there's a bit of a shift that happens there. So what was it about coaching that you found was just right for you?
Well, I'm very bottom line, and especially since my husband had a wonderful job, but it was a nonprofit. And so my income was very important. And so once I knew I was able to match my consulting income, I certainly was using, the tools as I was learning them. And that then I really found it so interesting as I started to get leaders and more leaders in managers, C-suite, not as much of that right away. And locally, that I realized what a joy it was to be doing more of that work. So I decided to finally add coaching to my answer machine message, yeah. Consulting and coaching. And I think I made it coaching and consulting.
Yeah. One of the things that when we have talked in the past that you mentioned was when you first got introduced to coaching, it was more life coaching than it was business or corporate coaching. And that was one of your observations. And it was also your mentor coach and Coach U observations as well. Tell us a little bit more about what happens when they realize that you're sort of bringing a new twist to coaching with your corporate experience.
Thank you. Well, evidently they have been talking about adding an advanced school and dividing it, one for life coaching and one for corporate coaching. And since my mentor coach happened to be the registrar, or was in on those discussions, he asked me if I would be interested. And, and I helped design the courses, some of them. And 2 of us would lead the course. I mean, it was really, new business type stuff. That fed what I needed as well. I mean, I feel there is not a gigantic separation. As someone once said to me, are you a corporate or a life coach? And I said, well, I haven't coached any aliens yet, so I guess I'm both. But my experience and my comfort level was in the corporate world.
Yeah. And so you come back to Nashville from all of this training and
Mhm.
helping other people to get their certification. And there's something though that comes to your mind about creating community and particularly creating coaching community in Nashville. So tell us a little bit about how that comes to be.
Well, I was a member of what was well, it's ATD now. It was
Yeah.
ASTD, I think, and I was on the board and eventually was president there. And so I just put an ask out and, asked for time at a meeting and just said, I'm thinking about bringing together a group of people who either are coaches or are thinking about becoming a coach. And, and I had 4 responses. And I invited them to bring their lunch in a brown bag, so to speak. And we sat around my kitchen table and talked.
Yeah. Yeah. So it all starts at the kitchen table and
Yeah,
it begins to grow. So I want to call out those names, those initial founders who sat with
please.
you around the kitchen table. The first one is Christine Patel,
She was
Lisa,
a therapist, by the way.
yes, Lisa Adams.
And she was the only one that was a fully trained coach and had just
And,
moved here from California.
okay. And Susan Depew
Hmm.
and Judy Kohler.
Who was a therapist as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. So the 5 of you are gathering at your kitchen table. We know you're joined by other volunteers who come along the way. And what happens? What are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish by coming together?
In all honesty, we were trying to just get some gravitas feet on the ground, And fortunately, Susan had a rental area that had a corporate room where at least 12 or 15 could meet, so we went there. And then again, bring your own lunch, and we among us, we were the program. We brought a little program, but mostly half of it was, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you interested in coaching? So, like so many things in life, we got to meet people while breaking bread. And I think that made the difference. And then people like myself and Lisa and even Susan and who was the first person again? I forget her name.
Christine.
Christine brought tapping in, so whatever we could bring to we weren't charging. I mean, just to make it interesting. And then we outgrew that room, and Judy opened a room at her Methodist church in Green Hills. And then from there, we went to a Presbyterian church near Thompson Road. And then Mark Capolino really kicked me in the you-know-what and said, hey, isn't it time we become a little more professional? And at this point, we were charging a small amount and we're saving. And again, we were still pretty much locally bringing in people. And fortunately, I had a lot of connections.
Yeah.
So
some of those connections you made at a large conference. And we know in 1995, the organization ICF is formed and created.
mhm,
And a gentleman by the name of Thomas Leonard, who is
mhm.
considered the founder of coaching, he takes off on a road show and he manages to stop by and see you. So tell us more about the Thomas Leonard road show and how that sort of elevates the chapter to the next level.
Okay. And just a slight correction, he didn't come to see me. At that particular conference, I was able to get with his person. and and say, hey, from what I heard, he's coming awfully close to Nashville and we're growing there. He could really make a difference. And I spoke with him and he was willing to give us one night. And so these 5 people and their any friends they could rope in, spouses definitely, we rented a ballroom at Maxwell House and put together stuff about what we were about and whatever else we could come up with. And that was the turning point. We really started to get then. I think we were close right after that to about 25 members. Not members. We didn't have membership. Okay. 25 people regularly
25.
coming out.
Yeah, we know that the group sort of is as you've described it to me in the past, it was the Pat White group. And it was the Pat White group through many of those years until around 2003. And then some structure begins to happen along with this introduction to ICF through the Thomas Leonard Roadshow. You actually begin to form the first set of bylaws, and other people begin to step up and sort of take leadership roles in the chapter. We know in those early days, it was folks like Judy Kohler, Mark Robertson, Vicki Manning, Sandra Lipsky, Dale Savage, Mark Capolino, the one who kicked you in the butt, and Shawnee Becker, Jackie Welch. Cerie Becker. They all take on one at a time the idea of being the leader of the chapter, growing membership, and starting to bring more programming and credibility to the chapter. So it was really an exciting time, wasn't it, to see others sort of step up and take the lead? And
well, if you have an OD background, they drill into you that you are not supposed to stay the leader. And I felt like I had already stayed in that role for way too long. And so, again, go have lunch with somebody and say, hey, what do you think? I'll support you. But that's when, again, we became an organization.
Yeah. So the association then is with this larger group, ICF International. Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts about why you think having ICF certified training and credentialing is so important today?
Yeah, more than ever before. Everybody thinks they're a coach. My hairdresser told me he felt he was a coach. I didn't disagree with him because he had scissors in his hand. Okay. But, just like every trainer back in the day was calling themselves a consultant or some vice versa, whatever. I knew that it was really important for us to differentiate ourselves. And achieving 125 hours not only adds to your skill set, but it adds to your marketing. And obviously, as I said, learning never stops. You have nothing to lose. And then as ICF, and everybody didn't embrace credentialing with ICF. Some went on. There's other credentialing places, none as, helpful to us as ICF. But yeah, so that went on. And I think it's just really important for a coach, especially if you're working with organizations, because they're looking for it now. And that makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it lends itself some credibility, much like an educational degree. This is just another way of lending the credibility that you have training behind you and that you also have experience with the coaching hours.
Right. And putting your, your professional credentials and what you offer, getting to, I think I heard Edie mention this, that people still don't understand coaching sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it's important that at that time, I don't know, I don't think LinkedIn was even up much. And we were all handing out brochures. And but then
Yeah.
it got to doing a website. So you had to get clear what your products were. And when I would mentor new coaches who were growing, wanted to grow their business, that's one of the earliest things I would work with them on.
Yeah. There's a comment down below from our technical gurus in the background, Dr. Akina Finch, that if you have a comment that you want to post, we can see those on the screen. Pat can see those. So if you want to send some love to Pat, maybe share a memory of when you worked with Pat or how she inspired you, just drop it in the comments. Or if you have a question that we're not covering that you're really eager to find out, you can drop that in the comments too, and we'll try to get to those as we go along. So watch for those love notes coming your way, Pat.
I've already been getting them at the bottom of the screen.
Very good. Good. So tell us, when does the chapter then start to charge a little bit and to deliver programs, so to speak?
Well, I think it was once we started to get into those churches, because what we wanted to do was, they were so wonderful through our connections there to let us use this space, that we wanted to make donations to them. We always did that, sent a few $100s back their way, and to keep everybody happy. So that, I think, once we had a board, and even if it was like half the size of what we have today, we were continually every year looking at programs and bylaws and what to charge always, and how to include people and not exclude them. All the things that we still have to revisit every year almost.
Yeah.
But we were becoming quite professional. And at that point, we had professionals on. I mean, Dan Hale had an accounting background. We had some people that were very strong in nonprofit, and knew an attorney who worked with, let's say, I think it might have been Pam Brown, I don't know, these Center for Leadership, I think it's called. They work with nonprofits. So we started, incrementally. So we went for the people around the table, to the people in the room, to just the board, then working more fully. And we had an hour-and-a-half meeting, so you could meet and greet and see some things. And again, we were still pulling from who we knew.
Yeah, right. When you look back on all these years, what do you see as a few of the big accomplishments for the chapter that you're most proud of?
Wow. Okay. Well, I think once and I wrote these down, I really did, and some of them were mine, but I think it was the chapter at the same time. Right after we had those 5 people and we started meeting and things started to grow, I know for all of us, we would talk often about the pleasure of using all of our skills. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I got pulled away to a comment.
That's okay.
And I mean, whether you were a trainer or a yoga instructor, okay, or a business consultant, I think that was great. For me, mentoring newer coaches to build their business and their skills was really important. And I would say my top 3 are that: becoming known as a coach in Nashville. I love it when somebody reaches out to me and you ask that good business question: how did you come up to call me and they say, "Oh, we've heard of you for years." And I would say the other thing that I'm proud about a lot of us in our chapter, and we have to watch it. I love that we're getting so many new people, is that I was able to keep coaching into my 70s. And, I've often said there may come a time where even getting in a car or on a plane and going to an organization, you don't feel like you're the best to be doing that. That doesn't mean if you've got the skills, you can't keep working online.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
How about the chapter? When you think about the work that the chapter's done, anything that comes to mind to you that I know you mentioned Mark pushing you to be more professional and open up the space to let more people come in.
mhm.
Yeah.
I think that each and every president did so much. They brought their heart and their mind to the role. It was common for several years for the president to host the new board, and sometimes the new board and the old board at their home. I remember Edie making lasagna for us. I remember Mildred Walters making a really fun meet the other people on the board so much. And so the chapter grew in heart, which a lot came with it, but it also grew in professionalism. We started to set standards for what our programs would be. We had one person come, I think I may have mentioned this to you casually, and he wanted to bring a local money guru. He was able to secure and that's when when we told him that, what does that have to do with coaching? And unfortunately we lost him over that, and that woke us up to saying, okay, so the role of development has to also be sure that even if it's a person from outside our realm, so to speak, a professional coach, that they know who they're talking to and that they have questions and things to bring that makes a difference. So when you're a lawyer, the other thing we did for a while was have marketing Mondays. We felt like that filled in some months when nothing was going on. We also met at bars sometimes for social events.
Yes.
And actually, I think I know Dan did one at a park. I don't know if that attendance was as good as the bars.
May not have been. Yeah. I would agree with you in preparing for this interview and other interviews we've done, compiling the list of volunteers and looking at the minutes and the things that happened during these presidencies. Every one of them came with such a dedication, and so many of them are still in the chapter today. These past presidents of the chapter still contributing and still giving back to the chapter and this community of coaches. It's very inspiring to be a part of it, I must say.
And it's hard for a nonprofit, so to speak, to build a team.
Yeah.
And we had each other's backs. When Mildred, and I know she shared that she had a health challenge, somebody else always stepped right in. When Cerie Becker's husband took a job up in Buffalo, someone else stepped right in for the remainder of that. And we all started going together to ICF meetings, conferences. All the conferences were in the States at that time. And so while it was a great write-off to go to a wonderful place, you also learned so much, and you could pick up your extra CEUs because every 3 years you needed 40 if you were credentialed.
Yeah, that's right. It's you talked about how everybody sort of bands together and works together and have each other's back. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring this topic up, which is the topic of COVID and the impact that it's had on businesses and on the coaching industry as well. And Joanna Williams, during her tenure as president, she had a big decision to make about how the chapter would continue to function without us being able to meet live and in person. And it's through her leadership and the leadership of Karen Nash that we get through that trying time. And they took the programs virtual, which then really opened it up to allow coaches from all over to join in on some of the learning that the chapter provides.
For sure.
We're kind of at that crossroads now where things are beginning to open back up. And I think that the membership would be really curious to understand what your viewpoints are on how the chapter sort of moves forward from a Nashville-centric in-person view to this view of having more of a virtual presence throughout the state of Tennessee. And I think it would be great to hear your perspective on that.
Thank you. You said Nashville-centric, which is very true, but we were centric in many other ways. It was the rare coach that was coaching online, on the phone or on not Facebook, I'm sorry, on their iPhone or whatever. And, and there was this belief that you could not be a good coach online if you were face to face. And Joanna she was awesome because she had to make some decisions and think things through that she knew in her mind might destroy us, and she, as you said, she did a good job of that with her board, and Karen picked it up and kept going.
Yeah.
So to your question about the current centric, since so many of us have opened our eyes and said, oh, this isn't bad, and you can do it on Zoom, and I can still wear my pajama bottoms if I want. Okay. I think it is not an either or. I really do. I don't think of it as moving away from our center statewide chapter. Instead, I see it as us being the pivotal organization in growing and serving through multiple ways of reaching people. Now, is that going to mean something different? Yeah, probably. I believe the LA chapter has a membership fee. Used to be $75. It's probably a lot more. But for people who only want to get a hold of programs online, it also means that we're not going to have a lot of the live programs face-to-face someplace able to be shared because you have to get permission from the speaker, and a lot of speakers don't want to do that. So we might be bringing in other things. Hence the Marketing Mondays and different other programs. So it's not about either or. I'd love to be able to come down back to a live meeting someplace, okay, and be able to hug so many people that are coming at me right now. However, I also think there's times as we continue to grow. And, like me, when I was going through chemo, I couldn't go to meetings. So if we had something else, and I also think it's the foundation we set, why we kept growing by having something there.
Yeah.
And again, I credit people like Edie, Terry Warren, Terry Humphrey, as well as all the others. And I know you're going to be great behind them. You are great already.
Oh, thank you, Pat. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, there's a tension there, this desire for us to want to come together and be together live and in person. And yet we see this great opportunity that we can touch so many more people with virtual programming and virtual meetings. So it's an
Well,
ongoing thought,
it is. Chaos, good always comes out of chaos. Some bad too.
Yeah.
But it usually brings out wider creative ideas.
Yeah.
And again, I come back to it, it does not have to be either or. So the charge would be for the current board and people to say, okay, how do we make it either and?
Yeah.
And keep going, since as Edie just finished telling me, reminding me that we grew when other chapters were folding.
Yeah. The last time I looked at the dashboard, we had 156 members. It's an all-time high for the chapter. So lots of hard work went into that, into the membership committee with Anna Walker and Gail Southwell. They worked so hard last year and many years, and then programming that came out of last year with Diane Watson and Lisa Gamble. They really helped elevate the chapter. And today we have Sherilyn Payton from Memphis, who's leading the charge on professional development. And like you have said, next to the president, that professional development is one of the most important seats on the board, because it's really what puts the rubber to the road in providing coaches with really good quality training and education and skills. Yeah.
It really is. And that's why, I don't know if it's still there, but at the time we said, you can get your programs together, and most of us were pushing for them to have programs 6 months in advance in place, but you had to bring them to the board for approval.
Yeah. So, to ensure that it was bringing value to the membership. I think that's the safeguard there, is make sure that whatever we bring is bringing something of value to our coach members. Oh, it looks like Pat's frozen up again just a little bit.
Something that was maybe going on.
Yeah. All right. Well, when I look back at your storied career, Pat, and the work you've done with Coach U and Impact Coaching, which was a coach training program that you really helped sort of inspire to be created in Nashville. Do you want to talk any more about that, the creation of Impact Coaching, or your involvement with the curriculum at Coach U?
You don't make a lot of income at it, but you make a lot of connections with it. And so, and it's, to me, sometimes it's even a form of giving back. With Impact Coaching Solutions, they were trying to bring their business to this side of the country. And I was introduced to them through someone else. And I actually went through their program to make sure that because it's an ICC program, that it lined up with all of our competencies, and they do. And, they wanted to come. They wanted us to send people to them. And I said, well, what you need to do is do it in Nashville, because that was something. Eventually Des was doing this too, but there was not very much happening here. Yeah. And and what they did was we would get someone like them to present at a luncheon, and then they could charge a little bit more to do an afternoon 3 hours. And that happened to be a makeup that worked well. And I think all of us who did this learned this from the schools we went to and saw how they were offering their programs in different ways. And Impact Coaching was delightful. We also had, I think, another school that I was on the faculty of was Coaching Academy Texas. They have another name now. I think it may be International. And where I grew was accepting the role of talking about coaching teams for the organization in London. It was challenging for me because that was, they had large classes. Everybody came with almost different expectations of what they would get. And they were all very good coaches already who had completed their training program. So I learned to listen well for accents, which seemed to be my biggest problem sometimes because they were worldwide, and so had new appreciation for my northern clients who told me I had a southern accent.
Yeah.
So we learn, and I think you said at one point, by stretching ourselves, and it was delightful, and I did it for 3 years. The same thing with Owen, working with students. Yes, you got paid. It might not have been what you would have made if you were coaching somebody on the senior team in an organization, but what a difference.
Yeah.
What a chance to make a legacy. I'm all about integrity and legacy for all of us.
Yeah. Pat, it's just so storied, all the coaches that you have touched along the way. And when you think about all of those coaches then going out into the world and making the impact and making the difference that we know coaching can bring. I have to tell you, we just concluded celebrating Black History Month, and we had a panel of Black coaches on the panel who were past presidents. Yeah, it was a wonderful interview. Each one of them mentioned you in their conversation about you either inspired them to get into coaching, which I think I saw Edie Nash's comment here a little bit ago. She was one of those panelists, or you inspired them to move into their credentialing and continue to grow their skills, and everyone feels quite inspired to have known you and had your influence. I wonder if you might share with us what that feels like today to be at this place where you are in your life and see all the coaches that you've touched along the way. What does that feel like?
One word: honored. Just honored to have been part of their lives, to have been part of their training in some ways, with such fabulous people who want to be outstanding coaches. And the continuation, I mentioned I worked with Ed McCool for over 5 years as my mentor coach. At a certain point, some people don't, they stop. And I mean, what we do, I'll turn to Edie Nash sometimes and say, I've got this going on with a client, and I'm just not sure which way I want to go. And I've had other people, other presidents, people we would think, oh, they're great coaches, all that kind of stuff. And we do reach out to each other every once in a while. It's not overdone, but we all run into things occasionally, whether it's accepting a client or if it's a difficult client, that we'd really like, 15 minutes of your read of this situation.
Yeah.
And I'm honored to do that. And that's why I offer myself up to the presidents. I don't have to go to the board meetings anymore. You all do a great job. Mama doesn't have a whip anymore.
Well, what you do have is always a seat at the board table. And so as ex officio board member, you will always be a part of the leadership team at ICF Tennessee. We're getting closer to the end of our time together. I want to make sure that those people who are listening, if you have a question for Pat that I haven't asked so far, just drop it in the comments, and we have some extra time. We can answer those questions. Yeah, I can't imagine what it must feel like to think about all of the coaches that you've touched along the way and the people that the impact that it's had on the people. So tell us then, what did we miss today in this interview? What did we forget to ask you, or what is it that you would like to tell us that we haven't asked you?
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to share something that's a little controversial, and I want to
That's
say,
good.
and that is my belief that coaching is not a business, is not a practice. Coaching is a business.
Yes.
And it's really something that we have to be aware of, and it's what got us in trouble a little bit with therapists, because therapists have practices, and that also means they have to visit a therapist of their own every so often. They are supervised by a board. And on the other side, which I now, know myself, is that when you need to rewire, the old word for retire, you're not losing yourself. And because if it's Pat White and Associates or something like that, boy, I'm really wedded to that as my image, and I'm having fun almost. And COVID helped me with this. I don't know if I'd have gotten here without COVID, but to be comfortable with rewiring how I show up in today's world.
Yeah.
So, and then the last thing I want to share is, given 150 plus members, always remember what 5 women accomplished when it seemed impossible. And people step up if they're passionate enough. And we 5 were.
Yeah. Yeah. Just look where it came from. Brown bagging it in your kitchen to today. We're telecasting this live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. It's a phenomenal thing. And you've walked that whole journey with us. Pat, on behalf of everyone at ICF Tennessee, thank you. Thank you for sticking with us and creating this organization, this community of coaches, which we all fondly love. We so appreciate you, and we're so grateful for your just enduring work, Pat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Don't forget me.
We won't. Yeah. So throw those comments in there. We're getting ready to sign off. This is your last chance to send a love letter to Pat. We're just really, really grateful. 150 some members now. The board is doing good. We get "Thank you, my friend. I love you" from Edie Nash. It's beautiful. Thank you, Edie.
Love you right back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And stay a networker. I love, Akia said, Pat is a people magnet. And I think of myself as a people connector.
Yeah. Mark Capolino says thank you. And Sandra says unforgettable. I'm so glad you could be with us, Sandra. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Pam Brown. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Pam. Thank you. So happy I could hear you, says Alyssa. You must know her.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's fabulous. Well, Pat, we're gonna sign off. I'll be talking to you again soon, I know, because I'm one of those presidents that needs to lean on you from time to time. So thank you for that. Jennifer Gamble says thank you for the meaningful conversation. She loved hearing about the start of ICF Tennessee in your leadership. So that's beautiful.
Take care.
Yeah.
Do good.
All right, everybody. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.